of the apostleship of prayer. Oh, something. Huh? All the expenses for the publications he paid himself. That time he was a high school teacher and he had a good salary. Even after Father Arnold had founded the mission house in Steil, he continued publishing little prayer booklets, like a St. Joseph's booklet in 1884 with prayers to St. Joseph. In 1908, a 12th edition of this publication was published. This booklet was published. So it was most successful. Another special prayer leaflet from before the foundation of Steil, which was spread all over German-speaking Europe, explained the prayer of the Rosary and suggested 5 special intentions, one for each of the 5 decades. The reasoning behind the idea was quite simple. The Rosary is one of the most familiar of all Catholic prayers, both in the parish community and at home. If the faithful are taught to be aware of the needs of others in their prayers, they will be less preoccupied with their own selfish interests, and by degrees will acquire a selfless concern for others and sincere love for neighbor. Interesting, huh? That he had as his purpose of these intentions of the Rosary, to inspire others to love their fellow human beings. Very missionary. When we look at these intentions, we see they were truly in the service of evangelization. The 5 intentions were not directly related to the mysteries as such. For the first decade, the intention was the extension of God's love and kingdom on earth. The second was for missionaries, priests, and bishops of Holy Church, that the Lord may bless them and fill them with zeal for the salvation of souls. The third intention was for the conversion of sinners, the consolation of the afflicted, assistance to the needy and oppressed, and for progress of virtue in the just. The fourth, for God's blessing on families, communities, institutions, and houses of religious, that all may serve God in peace and gain eternal happiness. The fifth, for the triumph of God's cause over its enemies everywhere, and that the erring may be brought back to the bottom of Holy Church. Our late German historian, Father Bornemann, writes, through his efforts to promote the apostleship of prayer and selfless intentions through the Rosary, and by his own prayer for the great intentions of the Church, the school teacher in Bocholt had developed a truly Catholic outlook. So you see, he became a missionary through communication. Communication in the service of the apostleship of prayer. Now, Father Arnold then published another most successful magazine, in German, Der kleine Herz-Jesu-Bote, in English, The Little Messenger of the Sacred Heart. You'll see there, that was the first issue, number 1, first volume, 1874. Now, Father Arnold's work in the service of the apostleship had made him more and more dissatisfied with teaching in Little Bocholt. He was interested in the whole world. Publishing successfully so many small booklets and prayer leaflets had given him a taste for communication. In 1873, he decided to quit his work as a high school teacher, and his new ambition in life was, as he said in his own words, I was imbued with the idea of doing more for the spiritual welfare of the Church, and especially the foreign missions. But because of the heavy schedule, in particular the subjects I had to teach, science, physics, mathematics, and French, there was little opportunity for these activities. I wanted to take up a position where I could do this. That meant giving up the job in Bocholt. My intention in particular was to find the time to publish a popular monthly for promotion of prayer and participation in the great intentions of the Divine Savior, especially the propagation of faith. After some searching, he ended up as chaplain and part-time teacher with the Ursuline sisters in Kempen, the home of famous Thomas à Kempen, the author of the Imitatio Christi. Now, and here in Kempen, he became a full-time evangelizer through communication. His communication enterprise was a one-man enterprise. He was writer, editor, sales manager. The magazine was printed in the faraway Paderborn. He called it Kleine Herz-Jesu-Bote. Actually, he had borrowed that name from the magazine of the Apostleship of Prayer, which was called Herz-Jesu-Bote, or Messenger of the Sacred Heart. He just added the word little and published his own magazine, but with permission. He had asked the editor of the Messenger to be able to add the word little, then publish his own publication under that name. Each issue would consist of 8 pages in an 8 by 12-inch 2-column format with a map or a picture. Father Arnold was the owner of the magazine, therefore all the profit went to him, and he earned also his livelihood, for he had no more fixed income. He told the printer and publisher to place large and expensive ads in the 3 major German Catholic newspapers and smaller ads in a dozen small papers, mostly in Germany, but also in Tyrol, Austria, and Vienna. Actually, for the whole German-speaking Catholic Europe. He wrote 3 promotional letters which the printer was to send to priests, religious houses, and book dealers. 2,000 copies of these letters were mailed out. You see the work he put into it, eh? As I said in the other talk, the content focused on the foreign, the pagan missions from the 2nd issue on. In order to find material for the magazine, he studied many books and maps. He studied mission history and subscribed to a French Catholic mission magazine, the foremost publication of the French Society of the Propagation of Faith, founded by Pauline Jaricot, a French laywoman. Father Arnold's little magazine was not the only mission magazine in Germany, but the Jesuits published one as well, already since 1873. It was intended for the clergy and highly educated lay people. Father Arnold aimed at the broad mass of the people. After 3 months, he had 3,000 subscribers. Not bad, for a one-man show. After paying all the expenses, he still made a small profit, so he could pay for the next issue. When we look at the style of his magazine, we see he wrote simply, factually, and without fine phrases. And he gave witness of his faith, which radiated from every page of the magazine. The result was that his readers staunchly supported him and his work. He himself wrote about his style, "My guiding principle is always to be as intelligent and interesting as possible." I think that could be our guiding principle today too. Intelligent and interesting as possible. The titles of the articles were meant to attract the reader. The articles contained detailed information, now comes the natural scientist, about geographical data, flora, fauna, and ethnology. Against this background, he drew a clear picture of the life of the missionary. Everything was condensed, almost as in an encyclopedia. Now and then he printed a few dogmatic ascetic articles which went above the head of the readers. So that was not so bad. But the other articles, they got the attention of the readers. Each issue, who would dare to do that today? Each issue began with a prayer before reading and ended with a prayer after reading the magazine. Would any one of you dare to do that, even with a Catholic magazine? Okay, he did. He said, okay, he did it as the member of the Apostleship of Prayer, that you can see. With his articles, He sought to awaken in his homeland interest in the foreign, the pagan missions, as well as in the needs of his homeland. Now, he published also a special missionary supplement, the next one. Now, it was the supplement of the Living Rosary. No, not this one, the other one, before that. This is the Michael's calendar. That's St. Michael's Almanac. Beilage. That is the one. Beilage. And there, on the right, in the right column, he said, I first explain, wait. Now, this leaflet contained intentions for the 15 decades of the Rosary. The decades, each decade was assigned to a person, 15 persons, each of whom promised to pray a decade of the Rosary daily. It was given a new prayer intention each month. Living Rosary, eh? For many people, it was too much to pray the whole Rosary every day. So they committed themselves to praying at least one decade with a special intention. The intentions changed around amongst the readers. Now, these rosaries, those intentions, my gosh, like he would pray for, first place for China. He said exactly, according to the census of those days, how many people, what's the population China had. Other countries, other things, we have Jews and Muslims. He said, how many Jews in the world, how many Muslims in the world? Always according to the latest census he could find. He prayed for the countries of Europe, each individual. He prayed for countries all over the world. So the readers, and those ones who prayed this Living Rosary, were in connection with the whole world. Got some very good, solid information about all the countries of the world. These rosary leaflets were not added to the magazine as something extra, but formed a single unit with it. He wrote, "We promote the missions most effectively by getting the people to pray fervently for them. It's a question of converting the world. The world will be converted if God wills it. God wills it as soon as grace for it is implored. Clearly, a great grace cannot as rule be obtained except through much prayer. General admonitions to pray are good and useful. Much more effective, however, is practical direction. Show the people something practical." He wanted the directions to be as simple as if they were meant for children. In a certain sense, we remain children all our life. We are most helpless precisely in those things that are most important, prayer for examples. The intentions for the decades, as I said, covered the whole world, Christian and non-Christian countries alike. Furthermore, he gave statistical data about the religious condition in each country, as well as details about the land and the people. There was a saint for each month, a list of the saints of the country, and a litany, like a series of petitions for the various countries and for the persons saying the prayers. Such prayer is real prayer for the missions, he said. It widens the spiritual vision of all sides. I think something we should not forget even today in our publications, to connect the people with all the world. Yesterday, I came with the German airline Eurowings, and since recently, they have WLAN on the plane. And they advertise it with connect with the world. So today you connect with WLAN to the world, and he wanted the people to be connected with the world through prayer. Within a year, he had 800 subscribers for the Rosary leaflets. Gradually, the total climbed to 1,000. Even 20 years later, he still published the Living Rosary supplement. The work which went into it, to find all the statistical data, life of the saints and so on, you can imagine, that was a one-man show. Father Arnold handed his work of editor of the magazine over to Father Wegener in 1877. Wegener had a polished style and offered a wider range of topics. Father Arnold was well aware of the contribution the Little Messenger had made in the founding of the Steyr Mission Organization. And he said clearly, without it, he would not have been able to do so much in such a short time. Now, after some years in Steyr, some confreres felt the name Little Messenger of the Sacred Heart is too pious. Doesn't attract anybody anymore. But Father Wegener here said, no, it's just right. We owe so much to the Sacred Heart. We cannot change the title. Well, Father Arnold said we have to take that kind of title which attracts most readers. And so after 1 or 2 years, the title was changed into Steyr Mission Messenger, Steyr Missionsbote. And that existed until the beginning of the Second World War. Now, in 1874 and 1875, the Little Messenger was printed in Paderborn by the St. Boniface printing press. But in 1875, Father Arnold was informed that the contract with him was not going to be renewed at the end of the year. Father Arnold decided to have his own printing press, which started work on January 27, 1876. Fortunately, he had found a volunteer, trained lay printer. At the blessing of the press, Father Arnold said the following: "Our divine Savior pointed to the word for the conversion of the world by saying, 'Preach the gospel to all creatures.' At his time, the printed word was not known. At present, it is known. It is practiced, and the devil uses it to do a lot of bad things with it. The servant of Jesus, therefore, must use it to do good with it. For how powerful the printed word is, which through the press in an hour's time is multiplied 1,000-fold. However, not the multitude of printed matters is important. What is important is that the word is being read and put into practice." Also something, we are happy that today with the internet and everything, we can reach so many millions of people. But Father Arnold would say, that's nice, but the main thing is people read it and then practice it. After the blessing of the press, Father Arnold ran off the first page of the January issue of the Little Messenger. But then came, the Little Messenger doesn't exist anymore, but the next 2 magazines still exist today. And the first one is the Holy Stadt Gottes, the Holy City of God. It will come. Now, the publication of this magazine was the result of an offer made by a most successful Dutch publisher from Hertogenbosch in the Netherlands. He was especially good at printing pictures, and he proposed to Father Arnold a pictorial family magazine for German-speaking readers. Now, a family magazine, not a mission magazine, please, but a family magazine. We were at first rather opposed to the whole idea, Father Arnold said. One of the main reasons was that Germany already had several illustrated magazines. But finally he accepted the offer. He reasoned like this: by means of a non-mission magazine, the seminary, the mission house, and its press would be able to bring the mission idea to circles that were otherwise not easy to reach. And the offer was financially attractive. The mission house might derive a modest income for itself instead of being completely dependent on donations. However, in the course of time, the whole SVD got financial support from the Steyr Mission Enterprise. The magazine, now again, see the work which went into it. That it is, you see the format, it's not a small one, it's a big one. They could not print it in Steyr, it was too big for it. So it was typeset in Steyr by the brothers. So Father Arnold and some of his confreres found the articles. It was typeset in Steyr, then brought by train to Herzogenbosch, near Utrecht, quite a distance, There it was the guy printed it and sent it back, and then it had to be sent out, folded and sent out. For 5 years. For 5 years it was done this way. Now, the first issue appeared on January 6, 1878. The title, Holy City of God, could have been inspired by St. Augustine's City of God, or by a vision of a visionary nun, Maria of Agreda, the mystical city of God. In the first issue, Father Arnold explained to his readers how a mission house, whose main task were the foreign missions, could publish a family magazine for Germany. He wrote, "Whoever wants to spread something good, she must intend to influence his fellow human beings. And he then must use those means which, according to the situation at a given time, seem to be the most appropriate ones. The press is today one of those means." Well, what would he say today? Internet and so on, and companions. He would say that. By publishing the Stadt Gottes, Father Arnold would do something more than had happened so far in order to influence the public spirit in Germany for the best of holy religion. The missionary goal of the Stadt Gottes was the same as the goal of the St. Paul's Association in Switzerland. I heard tomorrow you get a St. Paul's sister coming to talk to you. I don't know if it's the same organization in Switzerland. They had the following purpose of publication. They said, we publish that the views of our faith would rule more and more in the state, in the family, and in the life of the individual person. So that is very interesting, very broad purpose of the Stadt Gottes Catholic Family Magazine, that the rule of the faith, or the views of our faith, would rule more and more in the state, in the family, in the life of the individual. Now, even though we have not much time, I would like you not to look at your laptop now, but for 5 minutes to exchange with your